So welcome back guys to We Talk Boxing, and this video we're going to be talking about Chris Eubank Jr. and his thoughts on his career, hopefully in the next 12 to 18 months, and the fighters who he is looking forward to potentially fighting. Now before I do, as always guys, please subscribe and comment and share and help us grow this channel even more to try and get more subscribers as well, try and get a little bit more listeners as well. Well, thank you to all those that are listening as well right now. So anyhow, I will come on to the Chris Eubank Jr. as the latest interview which he did with Sky Sports News the other day. But firstly, just going to have a look at some of the other boxing news as well, what's around currently. Now, this week, obviously, we've heard that potentially Devin Haney is going to be making a return, hopefully this year. He suffered that devastating, vicious loss this year to Ryan Garcia, who obviously we now know tested positive for those substances, and I think he's pretty much going to be serving his ban. And obviously, Devin Haney's obviously had some time out the ring and to reflect, to train, and to try and get his mind right for a return. But already people are throwing his name in there with some big hitters in the ring. We know that he's a 140-pound fighter, but people are calling him out and saying, "Oh, is there a potential fight with Haney versus Boots Ennis?" And to be honest, I think that's a brilliant fight, and I think it's a fight that Boots Ennis would probably relish at this moment in his career for a few reasons. He's going to get paid handsomely, and I think the fact that he's the bigger man in the fight as well, so he would be and feel comfortable in fighting someone like a Haney, even though Haney's got a lot of good skill, is a good boxer in his own right. I feel as if, you know what I mean, Boots Ennis would just be like, you know what, bring that on, pay me as much money as you can, and I'll beat you. But yeah, that's a good fight potentially if that could get made. There was talk potentially once Ryan has obviously served his ban that potentially they could have a rematch, maybe early next year, mid maybe summer 2025. But if Haney's coming back now, does that mean that he's going to have a few warm-up fights and then potentially look to take on someone like a Ryan Garcia next year, depending on what Ryan Garcia is doing and if he's been training and if he's in the right frame of mind? But again, yeah, for his name to be thrown in there with the likes of Boots Ennis is brilliant, really. And there's other fighters out there that he could potentially fight as well. You've got Teofimo Lopez, which is a natural fight to make at that weight. You've obviously got potentially a Tank Davis as well. Even though we know Tank Davis is currently campaigning at 135, maybe they could come up with a catch weight. But yeah, even Shakur Stevenson as well. He's around that weight, 135, but again, could be some sort of catch weight potentially fight which could get made. But yeah, exciting things in terms of boxing, and that's just a good bit of positivity to start the week. But in terms of this video, yeah, I'm going to be talking about Chris Eubank Jr. and his thoughts recently in his latest interview. And right now, I'd rather be sitting here telling you guys that Chris Eubank Jr. has got an opponent lined up and he's fighting on such and such a date, but it's not happening at this present moment in time. He has not recently, but he has within the last couple of months signed a deal with Sky Sports Boxer. So I'm guessing at some point soon, maybe even towards the end of this week or maybe early next week, or at some point they'll probably be announcing his fight. He is saying that he wants a few fights before he's looking to take on the bigger names. And he threw a few names in the hat during that interview. He threw someone like a Billy Joe Saunders in there. And I see why he threw Billy Joe Saunders' name in the mix. He talked about Crawford, talked about the Canelo fight, talked about Conor Ben as well. And there was talks about there in regards to Lara as well, and the other champion in the division. What's his name again? Janabek. That's it. How could I forget his name? So yeah, he was throwing his name in there in the mix to potentially say, you know what, there's an opportunity for me to maybe try and take on one of these guys and maybe claim a version of a world title. Something that he hasn't done yet in his career. But if he's not in it for the titles, is he just going to go out there and, you know what I mean, try and make the most money possible? And the names that he's throwing in the mix, as I mentioned, are Billy Joe Saunders. Billy Joe Saunders beat him earlier in his career. Um, you know what I mean? That would be a massive fight in the UK, but it wouldn't be possible because Billy Joe Saunders is a heavyweight right now, and there's no chance of him losing that weight. He probably hasn't been training, and you know what I mean. He's probably gonna sail off in the sunset and hold that victory close to his heart because he knows that Chris Eubank Jr. can't do anything about it. He beat him, and that's fact. So yeah, I can't see that fight happening. Doesn't matter how much money's been thrown in the hat because one of the guys is a heavyweight. Now, in terms of Crawford, he mentioned that Crawford would be a good fight, but he feels that Crawford's a little bit too small to beat him, and that's probably more of the arrogance from Chris Eubank Jr. Or just him, you know what I mean, really feeling secure in his skills. Maybe I don't know because we know that Crawford has the skills to beat someone like a Chris Eubank Jr. He's got the boxing brain, boxing ability, and he's the pound for pound guy. You know what I mean? So he will cause Chris Eubank Jr. a lot of trouble as well. And if that fight was to get made, would there be a catch weight? Because for Crawford to jump up to 168, and his last fight was at 154, that's a massive jump. So yeah, something like that, there would potentially have to be a catch weight being made at some point. And it's the same for you know what I mean, for the Canelo fight. There's talk about Crawford and Canelo, same sort of thing there as well because of the weight difference. But Chris Eubank Jr. called out Canelo Alvarez, saying that yeah, his team were talking, but it was just a case that they got offered a certain amount of money, and it wasn't about the money, it was about the preparation. He wanted enough time to prepare for the fight because he truly believes that if he could get in the ring with someone like Canelo, he can beat him. And the thing with Chris Eubank, like he said this a few times in the past, he said it against Triple G. Do you know what I mean? And Triple G at the time was a devastating puncher and obviously one of the biggest names in the division. And he was calling him out and he was trying to get that fight signed and sealed, but it never happened. But at every interview that he did, it was about time. It wasn't really about the money. And he's saying the same sort of thing now with the Canelo Alvarez. So, yeah, I feel as if he feels that he has the skills to cause a lot of harm for Canelo Alvarez and potentially that he could beat him. Be a fascinating fight. And it'd be a fight that, if it was to be made, could it be here in the UK? Because if it was, Jesus, I need to get a ticket for that because the chance to see Canelo fight live would be amazing. But yeah, I'm a a fan as well of Chris Eubank Jr. I prefer to see him active. I think that's the one thing that is missing in his career. But I suppose if you're chasing the bigger fights, you're probably only going to be looking at one, maybe two fights a year. He hasn't fought in the last 12 months. So this will be his first fight if he does fight this year as well. So, and the way things are going, we're now in August. So if Sky Boxer or whatever do announce a fight, let's say they announce it before September, you probably need a good 8 weeks, maybe 12-week max camp, which would then put you to around what, December times, give or take. So he'd probably be fine maybe the end of December. So yeah, he'd be lucky now if he gets one fight this year. But if he does fight this year, it probably will be more of a lower fringe opponent. I don't know who because there's so many fringe opponent names out there. Obviously, in terms of the British scene, there's some big names that have been calling him out, such as your Hamza Shirazis and Tyler Denny's, but these guys are fighting each other. Could it be a case that maybe he entices someone like a Nathan Heaney into a fight who's recently just lost his title? He's a British guy, and I no doubt feel that Chris would feel that he could beat someone like a Heaney, even though Heaney's a big, quite big for the weight. But yeah, that could be an easy fight to make in terms of a British showdown sort of thing. But I can't see that happening. I could probably see him fighting against the nobody, someone that we just haven't really heard of, really. And probably, you know, what I mean, if they announce something, they could probably get him out in a couple of months with him fighting against the nobody. But yeah, fascinating interview from Chris Eubank Jr. Confident, as brash as ever, but feel as if we just need to see him in the ring now. We just need to, you know what I mean? He just needs to get back, get active. And it'd be nice to see him probably capture a world title before his career ends, but he's probably not on the same wavelength as what most people are, but who knows? But anyway, that's just my thoughts. Obviously, we talked about Devin Haney, him potentially coming back, and obviously Chris Eubank Jr. as well, and his thoughts on his opponents that he would like to take on in the next 12 to maybe 18 months. But you guys can let me know your thoughts. Who would you like to see Haney in with next? Who would you like to see Chris Eubank Jr. in with next? And if the fight between Chris Eubank Jr. and Canelo was able to be made next May, let's say, who would you consider the favourite in that fight? As always, let me know your thoughts. Please subscribe, comment. Bless.